Hello.
Hey,
Welcome.
Willkommen. Is that?
That's German.
That's German.
I don't.
Guten.
Willkommen. Guten. Auf Wiedersehen. That means goodbye.
Bonjour. Fuck.
Sprechen die Deutsch.
How does Swedish work? Willkommen.
Welcome. I don't know any Swedish words. I know like some German words.
Yeah. Kallax.
Sprechen die Deutsch. It's Kallarts is actually how it's pronounced. But yeah, I know like Sprechen die Deutsch.
I know
PewDiePie.
I know. So we watched Midsommar.
We saw Midsommar. Really weird that they didn't have a cameo from Felix Kunterbar, whatever his last name is.
I don't think it's weird. I think it's actually completely normal that they didn't have it.
It makes sense that they would cut it out since they cut out the Nazi references.
God.
Ayo!
We're right in the fucking deep end. So we're really excited to talk about this movie.
Yeah. Rue has seen it twice.
I watched a movie so nice. I watched it twice.
You haven't done that since us.
I really haven't. And let me tell you, it hits fucking different.
So yeah, let's start with that. Like, what was your in and out experience first time versus second time?
Well, so I had kind of like, I don't know. I feel kind of weird. I feel kind of misgivings about coming into it with this sort of hereditary expectations because I felt a lot of dread during my first viewing of Midsommar.
Yeah, same. Especially because I had been warned that it was gory, and given how oppressive Hereditary was,
yeah,
I was expecting just that atmosphere, but with gore.
Yeah, absolutely. And then kind of like second time through, like I'm certain that I haven't rewatched Hereditary. I've only seen it once. I really want to check it out again, but I also don't feel like my anxiety is going to go down. Whereas with Midsommar, I was able to really appreciate it as kind of this like weird screwball college drama thing, this sort of fable that it's really trying to be. And it was a lot funnier and a lot more. I was able to really kind of see the granular aspects of how the students kind of related to students kind of related to each other more. I don't know. What did Jay? What did you think of Midsommar? Did you?
I liked it. I actually, it's funny you mentioned the funny thing. Aster has that kind of like Yorgos thing where like the first time you watch his movie, you're like the things that you were laughing at aren't supposed to be funny. You're just laughing because you're stressed, and then you see another one of his movies and you're like, oh no, no, he just is the exact same kind of like brain broken that we are. Where he's just like, wouldn't it be really funny if during this upsetting scene this happened?
It's actually really funny that there's this weird bait and switch where they kind of just like advertised it as like kind of a horror thriller vehicle, and then it's actually like a comedy.
Yeah,
like we were all kind of struck by that when we saw it in the theater.
Apparently, one of the next movies he's thinking of making is because he's like he's got ideas for genres that he wants to go into, but he's been like, yeah, I kind of at some time want to make just like a straight comedy drama, like not something that has horror things. And I think, you know what? I think I'll go see that. I'll go see that, and he will probably surprise me by having more gore in it.
Yeah, he did. There was some sort of interview where he ended it off with like, "Yeah, I want my next movie to take place in a cheesecake factory or something." I saw so that, and I was like, I sincerely would watch a horror movie, comedy, anything of his that takes place in a cheesecake factory, just entirely in a cheesecake factory. 100%.
What's that movie you always recommend I watch about the dinner table conversation?
Oh, Festin, the celebration, which is very...
I feel like it would be a movie like that, where it's like, it would be, the whole film would look like a cheesecake factory commercial, but it would be dealing with like deep family secrets.
God.
In a cheesecake factory.
That would actually be a fucking sick-ass Festin remake. Everybody watch Festin. It's really intense.
I asked you partially, this was a trick so that I could finally add it to my watch list. Because every time I try to remember it, I'm like, oh, it's called like conversation, family dinner.
Family dinner time.
And then trying to Google like family dinner, big secret exposed movie, nothing.
God. This is definitely, Midsommar's definitely a movie that kind of feels like Festin in a lot of ways. So yeah, Midsommar, kind of falls within my favorite genre and type of movie. I really had a very strong, like, kind of emotional reaction to Midsommar, for, you know, really obvious reasons. And it's kind of resonates with me in the same way that I think it resonates with a lot of millennials, I suppose. 'Cause, wow, this shit. It talks about some shit that is very real and very hard, and the characters feel very lived in.
Yeah, I know. That's I think that's probably one of my favorite elements of the film. Is people who've probably seen it, which you should if you haven't, or if you can't stand gore, it's fine if you listen, I guess.
Yeah, watch the TV edit, I would say. I have legitimately, like...
There's like a part where like as the old people are jumping off the cliff, it just cuts to like a birthday cake on the floor, on like a birthday cake dropping.
Yeah. It cuts to that one thing that Paul Rudd keeps doing on that fucking, like, the Mac and Me clip. I think that would
the little Mac and Me alien pops up over every scene with gore, like,
yeah, the gore is kind of simultaneously essential and non-essential to the film, so I've been legitimately recommending a lot of people be like, hey, watch the TV edit, maybe.
Yeah, it's something where I think it definitely feels necessary to the texture of the film.
Yeah.
But it is something where, like, if the gore is what's going to get in your way of enjoying or being able to watch the film, if there's, like, an edit of it or, like, a balderized version or, like, I don't know, like, some sort of, like, content warning, like, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, gore's going to be on screen. You can cover your eyes.
Yeah.
I mean, like, the first bit of gore in the film is very, very telecasted. Like, you see it coming.
Yeah.
But then there's a lot of times where it's just like, here's a shot of like, oh, it's just going to cut to them burning the bodies with smashed in skulls. Or like, he runs into his shed and here's a person whose lungs have been pulled out the back of their body and they're slowly suffocating to death.
Yeah, there's certainly the presence of kind of Ari Aster's like sadisticness and sort of there's a lot of that sort of thing of these kind of elements coexisting and kind of lane switching like at the drop of a hat, which kind of being like a jump scare in and of itself, but it's also really not scary.
It's the same sort of thing you do with Hereditary, where it's like things that aren't jump scares, but like give you the same feeling without the annoyance.
Yeah.
The classic I always go to is my favorite non-jump scare in Hereditary is still like when the son wakes up and like as the scene is like as he's just staring out the window, and so you the audience are like staring at the window as well, out the door as well, expecting something to appear. And a scene doesn't progress, your eyes start to drift, and then you realize that Toni Collette is crouched in the corner of the ceiling.
Yeah.
And that's what scares the shit out of you, because you realize that she's been there the entire time, but your eyes immediately went to the doorway.
Oh, such incredible.
Literally, when you see it, you shit bricks.
Yeah. And Midsommar, it kind of... The thing about Midsommar that I was really struck by stylistically is that it's a very bodily movie. Not only in just kind of they put forward a lot of this breathy sort of like that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
Like that's a motif throughout the movie where like this sort of Swedish cult is kind of doing that. But like breath, like the sound of breath, like becomes claustrophobically loud, like at a lot of different points in the movie. Kind of in the same way that like Hereditary has a lot of scenes where there's like a low droning bass tone to just kind of make you anxious. Midsommar has like a very bodily, very visceral texture to it throughout. That I was really, really obsessed with, and really kind of metabolized a lot of things that I've thought of in like different states of mind. To also be clear, Midsommar is kind of a drug movie.
Yeah, no, they are on acid for probably a good 40% of the film.
Not really. It's more like mushrooms and just like natural sort of holistic.
Yeah, it's the visuals were definitely very acid. I admittedly have never tried shrooms, or rather, sorry, that's a lie. I've never experienced shrooms.
Okay.
So I don't know if the visuals were quite that, but the visuals were definitely very like acid. That was actually one of my favorite like weird little visual tricks they do is in the like last quarter of the film when they're on acid or on whatever the hallucinogen is. just the small bits of visual distortion that go on.
Yeah.
And like the way they'll intensify as the characters get more stressed out. But when they're just like calm and like, oh, we're having a dinner, I guess. It's just like trees in the background kind of growing and shrinking. The flowers on her hat kind of like dilating randomly.
Yeah, that felt really accurate.
No, that was like such an incredible like dedication, because it's something they absolutely did not need to do, but it's like it works well too, because depending on how the acid is distorting things, you can tell whose perspective you're seeing that shot from. Like whenever it's Christian is center frame, it's a lot more like aggressively like like increasing on him, and then whenever it's I can't believe I'm blanking on her name. Danny. Whenever it's Danny in frame, it's like big and open, and it's just like, mountains kind of swaying slightly.
Yeah.
It's very, very, it's really nice. I really like that detail in like the film of just like really capturing how mood dependent hallucinogens can be and how they distort things.
Yeah, absolutely.
And really kind of comes down to how your perspectives are distorted by your emotional state.
Clunk. Yeah, like I really was struck by all the imagery of her kind of like her the sort of bounds of her body like kind of melting into the earth, and like all of this grass coming up from her, like from where she's touching the ground, and like kind of like reconnecting with nature, blah blah blah. And all of this stuff about like naturalism and beauty and like melting into the earth, that is played in contrast to like my brain races thinking about this movie, because there's just so much cool shit.
It's a very long movie with a lot to chew on.
Yeah. Because like there's all of this imagery that is like so bodily and so like centering with nature, and so like, yeah, like kind of beautiful but terrifying and complicated, which is cast against like this whole immersion therapy thing Danny's going through, where she's like watching these people kind of ritualistically self-sacrifice and commit suicide, cast against like her parents dying, which is like
her parents, to be clear, being killed in a murder-suicide that her sister...
Yeah.
I think they say she has, like, severe bipolar disorder.
Yeah, something like that.
Like, the implication is that it's, like, it's a bipolar disorder bad enough that it causes psychosis. Seems to be the implication in the film.
Yeah. Which every part about that, like, about really the beginning of the movie is just truly horrifying, really, like, troubling, really emotionally, just like emotionally destroys you, and at the same time it's like, I don't know, it's this really complicated thing where like that's a really ugly and horrible and hard to look at thing that happens to Danny, I should say, and like by sheer comparison, everything else that happens in the movie is not as bad.
Yeah, like her boyfriend and his shitty friends get killed.
Yeah.
I really love that like Ari Aster has been like, it's a more dramatic version of burning your ex's things.
Yeah.
which is burning your ex in a giant... I just realized he's in a giant stuffed bear.
Yeah.
As if like this kind of bullshit stuffed carnival bear that a boyfriend gets you that is burned as a cliche in movies.
Well,
I just made that connection.
I mean, there's a whole shitload of stuff about like the bear imagery and like bears like in folklore and what like everything they represent, and like there's a bunch of like, there's like a painting literally in Danny's room
of the bear on fire.
Yeah, there's one of the bear on fire, and then there's one of like a girl with a flower crown kissing a bear, it's so replete with like that shit throughout the movie.
There's the one interview Aster gives where he's like, yeah, the murals tell you everything that happens in the film, and we wanted to do that because we decided early on that it's like, it's a folk horror film, you know what happens.
Yeah.
And he's like, and I wanted to play with that, the fact that like these guys are studying this, so they know what's gonna happen, but they just think that they're gonna be above it.
Yeah.
That, like they're not gonna be subject to these rituals that they are studying and clearly see are about to happen, literally painted on the walls in front of them.
That, to me, like, that's the selling point of this movie, and that's what makes it so interesting to me, is that, like, bad things happening to these shitty American tourists is absolutely a foregone conclusion. Like, and the way the movie talks about the cult is so much more interesting and three-dimensional and realized than simply, you know, like a kind of just kind of a one-dimensional sort of no escape situation.
They're not like, we worship Satan in our Satan cult where we do Satan crimes. It's like, it definitely feels like, all right, this is a cult that has these rituals that have been enshrined over. They say that the sacrificial ritual happens every 90 years, but in order for that to be like a thing, they had to have been doing this for like probably hundreds of years.
Yeah.
And they're very insular and isolated to an extent. So it's definitely something where it's like, yeah, it feels like these are reasonable, you know, reasonable like treads to be worn into the cult over time. Although, when we get to it, I do want to talk about the cult's many contradictions.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, well, we can just kind of dive into that, because, like, the cult in this movie is so fucking interesting. Like, the thing that a lot of horror films really want to do is just kind of have there be a cult, whereas in this one, like, it isn't interested in making any concessions or being like, you know, like, this cult exists in spite of society. It's like, no, this cult exists like in conjunction with and like because of society, and they are aware of society, and they are able to make their case so well that they are able to continue existing as like a sacrificial, insane cult.
Do you think that's why they have the bit about them watching Austin Powers?
Abso-fucking-lutely.
Like that scene still makes me lose it, because like as I was talking about it, I was like, that means that they have power.
Yeah.
Basically solely to watch Austin Powers. Because you don't see them use electricity like at any other point in the film except when Danny's on acid and one of them is on a computer.
Yeah.
Or I don't remember if it's on a computer. It's something like they're on some electronic device.
No, there's a laptop.
It's a laptop.
During Danny's bad trip at the beginning of the movie, which like is so funny. There's so much funny shit like that in this movie. Because like that's really the thing. It's like they're not aware of like Western standards of ethics and ideology and all of this. Like, of course, like they live in the fucking world.
Yeah.
But in that, like, when you look at Austin Powers from an objective standpoint, there is nothing like unshakably there is nothing unshakably like that needs to be upheld like philosophically that Austin Powers is like made of in the fabric of Austin Powers. Like it feels kind of ubiquitous in our lives just because of being Americans, but like it's also bullshit.
Yeah, no, it's
misogynist.
So
it's
good.
Like technically like bad.
Yeah.
In the same way that this cult is like air quotes technically bad. You know what I mean?
So my take on the cults. Put my hand down, and we'll see how much this is held up by the forthcoming 3 to 4 hour long cut that Ari Aster is apparently going to release.
Desperate to watch.
If it gets a release here, we're going to go see it. I think the cult is a metaphor for the rise of fascism, and not in a like I'm making everything political, but actually it was like this was something I was sort of prompted to see before going in, because I was reading this thing or someone was like, hey, people who are going to go see this movie, particularly white people, and not in a like white people be like way, but in a like because it's going to be really bad if you do this way.
Yeah.
They're like, a lot of the ruins in the film are real Nordic ruins, which have very white supremacist connotations now. Like the people who made this movie definitely researched it and like definitely chose those ones for very specific reasons. And apparently because the original script had a lot more like random lines that kind of like introduced that element more into the film. There's like a joke about when he's asking about the ruin language, like one of them has a book about like Nazi ruins.
Oh, wow.
And like that's kind of like the connection he makes. He's like, oh, these are the same ruins, but he doesn't make the connection that like the Nazi ruins.
Well, there's also this kind of like forced eugenics thing that happens in the theatrical cut of
yeah,
the sort of like disabled child.
And Aster said that like that character Ruben, as he put as the character's name, it's somewhat drawn on like the rise of far right extremism.
Yeah, his name is Ruben.
Okay, yeah, is specifically in Sweden. You know, the way in which like the kind of like closed borders narrative that they're pushing necessitates inbreeding is essentially the idea. And that was something I knew about going in, and it like made me kind of notice a lot of the contradictions of the cult and the way in which a lot of their message and what they offered to Danny is essentially like, hey, society is wild and crazy and you can't control it, but what if you could control the whole community and you didn't have to feel pain because we decide when the pain happens. And so how the way in which like the narrative that they sell to Danny instead of the fairy tale thing that she finds, you know, on one level is she finds community, she finds real support, she finds real love and care. But what she has to accept on that is a cult that has very, very heavy fascist implications and a lot of contradicting claims. And with Ruben, the one I noticed specifically is the scene where Christian is asking about inbreeding, and they're like, "Oh no, we have to bring in new blood occasionally for that reason. We observe the incest taboo," is the line.
Yeah.
And then the scene, like I think immediately after or very shortly after, is when Josh is in the temple and he's asking questions, and Ruben comes up. And they say, "Oh no, Ruben is intentional, because he's like, how do you what do you do if like another child with disabilities is born? Like, what do you do if Ruben dies, and do you just wait for another child with the same deformities to be born?" And they go, "Oh no, we intentionally breed them that way. He is from a bloodline that is specifically selected to be inbred."
Yeah,
which means that they don't actually, air quotes, observe the incest taboo.
Yeah.
What they actually mean is that we observe the fact that there's only one bloodline that's allowed to do this.
Yeah. Which really falls in line. There's so much like thematically about like weird communication in this movie where like the cult is consistently telling like 80% of the truth.
Yeah.
And the 20% is like that they're missing is like always the biggest part.
Yeah.
Where like there's also this other scene where these sort of non-white British like tourists who Pele's brother Ingmar has brought, he kind of is just like, yeah, me and this girl that I brought were dating, and then all of a sudden she met this other guy, and now they're engaged.
They met shortly after we broke up. It's really funny.
Yeah, and then like she's immediately like, "We were not dating. We hung out one time. I didn't know it was a date."
And he's like, "Yeah, but anyway, we stayed friends after." And she's like, "We were always friends, just friends." Which I also love because it introduces such a like in similar contradiction the way in which like these sacrifices these giving are supposed to be framed as beautiful and stuff, but in that scene it's very obvious that this is like petty revenge.
Yeah,
that he's bringing them to the cult to be killed because he got cucked.
Yeah. And then interestingly, he's actually one of the people who like gives himself up like at the end of the movie. So quite literally doing a murder suicide for things that are even more petty than like mental illness. It's literally technically and literally like a worse crime than what Danny's sister committed.
In that ending scene too, like another thing about it is like, they frame it as like beautiful, like, you're giving yourself as a sacrifice. And he has the thing where he gives them like, he's like, this tree sap will help you help ease the pain and stuff. And then we see immediately that character is in horrifying pain.
Yeah.
And the thing I love about the way that scene is constructed is that it's what's the friend's name? Ingmar? Yeah. So it's Ingmar looking at the other guy.
Yeah.
The other guy catches on fire and starts screaming in agony. And it cuts back to Ingmar. And Ingmar just has this look on his face of, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
And it's like, to me, it's a sort of like compliment to Danny being new to the cult. And she's fully embracing it and smiling. Yeah. But then you have Ingmar, who's been in the cult his whole life, who essentially helped bring Danny into it by telling her all these things, realizing, oh, the cult lied to me.
Yeah.
This is gonna hurt. This is gonna hurt a lot.
Yeah. it's just kind of this inevitability that's like being played with, and it's just it's so interesting, and it works on every level that like every character in this movie has like an arc.
I just also made the connection in my brain. This movie is so layered and so good. Is that when he's talking to her about grief and how he also lost his parents, he's like, but I didn't feel the same pain you're feeling because I had the community there. And so that scene of him realizing, they're
Pele.
lying. Pele, yeah. He's like, that scene of him realizing, they're lying, it is going to hurt, is also the same thing with Danny is being sold this myth of, it's never going to hurt to have a breakup again.
Right.
It's never going to hurt to have your heart broken. It's never going to hurt to lose people. They're lying. It is going to hurt.
Yeah, like, because as long as you're being sort of held by this community, you will, you will be fine. There's so much like kind of false hope being offered.
Aster in an interview said that the film is about her getting out of an unhealthy codependent relationship and getting into a much healthier codependent relationship, but with a murderous cult.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's also to kind of put a cap on the sort of fascism discussion, I suppose, or not even put a cap on it, but just like there's there was an interaction that I like noticed the second time I watched the movie where Josh is, the kind of patriarch of the cult meets the college students for the first time, and he's like, "Oh yeah, no, you like my frock? It's very girly. Well, we blah blah blah. We respect the hermaphroditic aspects of nature, blah blah blah." And he's kind of yakking about like his own philosophy, and then Josh is like, "Oh yeah, that's just like this other random society in this other random corner of the world," and the guy just stares at him for a sec, which is really funny because it's simultaneously like, it's kind of doing the Fable thing of like Josh is really only able to see his own personal character arc, and like this patriarch character is also just like, I don't really give a shit about what you're talking about because that is outside of the borders of my weird little society, so sure, whatever, guy. Yeah. Just that dynamic with like every character throughout the movie is so fucking cool and like interesting. Just to kind of also like talk about Josh, I really loved Josh as a character. I feel like the sort of weird fascist stuff is like kind of present in the movie, but I also would want to watch like a longer cut.
I think the longer cut is my assumption, because in the interview where he mentions with Ruben specifically, he says that Ruben has more scenes in like his original cut.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming it's more of an explicit thing in the longer cut. It's just something that I think is interesting because it's like, I see a lot of discussion about, the breakup elements and Danny, is it good? Is it bad at the end of Danny? And to me, I'm like, well, I think the thing that's interesting about the film is that it's good. She gets catharsis, but it sort of asks like, not at what cost, but it asks like, hey, what in seeking catharsis, what can we possibly risk like opening ourselves up to?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's not like it's condemning her for seeking catharsis. It's not like it's condemning her actions. I don't think it's condemning her actions at all. But I think it is sort of like there's a slight like, but, the festivities aren't even over. Yeah. She doesn't know what's coming in the next 4 days. You don't know what's coming in the next 4 days. It could end up being that this was like not worth it.
That's very true, actually. Because I hadn't thought about that aspect where like it's not necessarily like the end of the festival, it's just the end of the movie, you know what I mean? And then it's like the beginning of the rest of Danny's insane cult life.
Well, and this is something I didn't notice until someone else pointed out. At the beginning, they say there's like 8 days of the festival, and the end of the film happens on day 4.
Wow. Okay.
So there's like 4 more days that we don't even see, and that Danny doesn't even know is coming.
Yeah.
Because Danny's like, especially because Danny's like lost any sense of time because of the lack of sun.
Yeah,
the lack of sunfall.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So yeah, just thinking about Danny, this movie kind of does something that is like my favorite thing for movies to do, where it does not blame really any character, or rather it does not feel like it's blaming or placing blame upon any of the characters particularly for their actions, and in that way it functions like really successfully as a movie about a cult, and like it kind of does the same thing that I like, that my favorite movie ever, Lady Vengeance, does, where it's like, what the fuck else was she gonna do?
Yeah.
Like, you really aren't gonna just join a cult when your, like, boyfriend is, like, unable to communicate with you. Like, throughout that movie, Christian is so, like, has so obviously, like, such major problems with, like, communication and honesty and, like, reading the room. And
I really love the scene right before they leave, where she notices that he's planning to go in like 3 weeks, and that he hasn't mentioned it. And it's so obviously this tense moment of like, she starts immediately apologizing and trying to like close the box because she realizes that what's going on is that he's planning on breaking up with her.
Yeah.
And rather than him taking the fucking plunge and doing it, it cuts to him being like, so Danny's coming, but she's not coming.
Yeah.
But I told her she's coming, and I told her that you all want her to come.
Yeah, absolutely. Just the most...
And then immediately cuts to her on the plane trip coming.
Yeah.
Literally had his moment to take his shot. It's been long enough since that tragedy. It's very obvious that he's not in the relationship anymore. He could have just ended it there, didn't, then had 3 more weeks to take it back and admit that that's what's going on, and he still doesn't do it. It's it's such brilliant character writing, because it's like,
it's so good.
It's so early on establishes his biggest problems in the relationship, which is he does not, we were talking about it earlier, I said, he does not want to be responsible for hurting Danny. Not that he cares if she gets hurt or not. And I don't think it's that he's like a sociopath. It's that he just doesn't want to be the one who's at fault for it.
Yeah. I would say, like, in spite of the fact that this is majorly not necessarily a horror film, to me, the absolute scariest part of the movie is when Christian is like literally talking to his friends about breaking up with Danny, and then he gets the call that's her just screaming.
God,
and then it cuts to a shot of him walking up outside of her apartment and hearing her screaming from inside, and like knowing what he's about to walk into.
Knowing what he's about to walk into, knowing what he was just saying.
Yeah. Like, the fucking floor dropped out from under me during that shit. Like, that's the hardest part of the movie for me. And it's hard to be like, fuck Christian, like, entirely. Like, I don't know.
I feel like, one thing I think is, like, I noticed a lot of people be like, oh, and then he cheats on Danny at this, like, emotional time. And I'm like, I mean, here's the thing. I don't think Christian would have ever cheated on Danny for the same reason he wouldn't break up with her. Because he's a fucking coward.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because he's a coward and he doesn't want to hurt her. He doesn't want to hurt her. It's a trolley problem situation. He doesn't want to hurt her directly, so he's going to let her get hurt way more in a much more longer term way.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't want to do a short term bit of something that will make her hate him.
Yeah.
So consequently, I don't think he would have cheated on her. He literally cheats on her because he is drugged and is literally just shoved into a room of a bunch of naked women and basically physically forced to fuck her.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, like, you know, he made his choice and stuff, but it's also like, that also ties into the contradictions of the cults, is then they're there and they're holding her and they're feeling her pain. And a lot of people point to that scene, but it's also like, it's intercut with them helping him cheat on her. So they're literally creating the pain and then selling her a solution to the pain.
Yeah, 100%.
Some could say capitalism works the same way.
One might argue that's also how fascism works, really.
I mean, fascism is just capitalism.
Yeah. Wow.
Cranked up.
God, yeah. It's just such a... It's so deep, and there's just so much shit.
There's so many like good layered character interactions. Also, like, this is something just even as I was walking out of the film and thinking back over it, the fact that at the start of the film when he's giving her advice on her sister, everything he is saying applies to his and Danny's relationship.
That's true.
Where he's like, every time she has this freak out, you give into it and you soothe her, so you just encourage her to get worse and worse. that's not actually what's going on with her sister. That's what's going on with him and Danny.
Yeah.
Because he's never like, hey, you're having a panic attack.
Yeah.
He's always just saying like, he's always trying to like, you know, and it's like, it's not that that's like, you know, he should just be like, get over it, thought. It's just like it very much so the implication is that he feeds into that anxiety because he doesn't know how to actually cope with her anxiety. And so consequently he ends up just feeding it because that's what will solve the problem faster for him.
The movie does so much really interesting shit, which is a great sentence that I just said out of my mouth.
It does. And then you have the fact that Danny's got her own communication
I was just making
problems.
fun of my own grammar.
Oh, yeah.
But I like how every character, or rather the way the movie talks about communication, of people just kind of like being stuck inside of their own head, and how the cult is kind of selling this bullshit idea of just like, oh no, we actually are all like, we're all connected and we're communicating in this like really, you know, connected way, blah, blah, blah. We feel each other's pain and there's no reason to have boundaries.
There's no boundaries here. If you want to fuck, you know, the elders will just be like, hey, you want to fuck this?
Somebody come fuck this.
Mom's going to be there. She's going to be shoving your ass in.
Yeah. So like, there's like another bit with Josh, being like, hey, cause there's that scene where they're all like, giving Christian the advice that like, is just something that they have obviously been like thinking about themselves, which is Will Poulter's character just being like, just dump her, she's a thought. Josh being like, are you sure you like, don't have personal work to be doing on yourself, like your thesis?
I loved Josh introducing it's very like it would almost be ham-handed if it wasn't 100% what Josh's character would say.
Yeah.
Because Josh's character has no tact and would just say that.
Yeah.
Where he just straight up says, are you sure that the reason you're not either working on your relationship or breaking up with her because you need the personal drama? Just straight up saying like, you are doing, like, you love this drama. You love this indecisiveness because it solves your problems for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So like, I don't know, just all of the characters, and like, it also kind of makes Pele a really interesting character to me, because he's really nice and he's really selfless, and he like apologizes in ways that Christian specifically doesn't. And also, I want to point out one of my favorite aspects of the movie, which is Christian forgets Danny's birthday, and Pele has to remind him that it's Danny's birthday and gives him a cake to give to Danny, which is so fucking funny.
It's so good. I also love that he then can't light it.
Yeah.
And it goes on for like, it's not like, oh, I can't, it's not like,
it's a happy birthday.
Oh, I can't light it.
Fuck.
It's like a solid minute of him just doing this, trying to light the cake. It's such a good bit.
It's so
while like
funny.
a cult is singing behind them and it's really loud, so it's like kind of covering up what he's saying.
Yeah. And it's just so, it's so apt and it's so good, and it's so deeply, like the whole messaging of the movie being like, hey, like your standard of communication is not really the problem, or like it kind of is. It's just kind of like this isn't going to solve your problems. Like maybe being more cognizant and more being able to like put your foot down and like being able to actually fucking talk to each other would help. But also you don't have to kind of rubber band to the opposite direction of having absolutely no boundaries of any kind. Like, I don't know. There's so much.
Yeah, no, I think it's like what you're saying is like really kind of at the heart of it, is that like the cult having no boundaries is appealing to Danny in a relationship where there's extreme, like they are both extremely guarded and have huge walls above each other.
Yeah.
But the no boundaries of the cult isn't healthy either. Yeah. It's just more appealing because it's what she doesn't have.
Yeah, absolutely. Like there's so much that happens where people just kind of steamroll over each other's like wishes and wants. And like Pele totally, like he does it with a smile on his face, and he's very kind, but he steamrolls over everything that Danny could have possibly wanted out of this weekend. Like, Danny probably, you know, wanted something that was, like, healing, and then also but like, he kind of obviously doesn't really care about her. And like, maybe it feels better because it's a way of not caring about her that feels more kind of easy for her to understand, as opposed to the whole thing with Christian just being like, hey, you're supposed to love me, what the fuck is going on? Like, we're supposed to love each other, blah blah blah.
She is drawn in by Pile because he offers her a role.
Yeah,
he offers her a place in a relationship, which is not what she feels with Christian.
Yeah,
but she isn't quite at the point yet of realizing that, like, him offering her a place in a relationship isn't the same as her having a place she wants. And she feels like it is because she becomes the Mayweather queen. She gets to have all of this stuff that's all around her. And it's so Mayweather great. Fuck off. But, you know, is she really getting to do that? Or is it just, this is how we get her to join our cult?
Yeah. Absolutely. I want to talk a little bit about like some of the other character motivation, because like that also kind of comes up with like Christian as well, because as much as Christian is like going through 1,000 different things at the same time, Christian is also during my second viewing of the movie, I was in the theater writing notes, by the way, so I'm looking at my own notes.
I was wondering what you were pulling out.
So I have a problem.
No, I did the same thing when I went and saw Us.
Yeah. So there's this classical horror movie thing that's happening where Danny throughout the whole movie, or like kind of more and more throughout the movie, which makes the power struggle between Christian and Danny way more interesting. But Danny is kind of the whistleblower and being like, hey, this is maybe kind of weird. Have you seen Connie?
Yeah.
Her boyfriend just kind of left her here. This is all really strange. And Christian's just like, wow. But no, nothing's weird here. This is fine, because it's all about staying to work on his thesis that he decided is about this place, to fuck with Josh as like a petty thing.
I love that.
Doesn't necessarily want to. There's so there's like a redheaded character from the cult that is flirting with him throughout the film, who I kind of we'll get back to her.
Okay.
Her name is Maya. Basically Christian is like, A, the thesis thing, B, trying to make more situations where he stays to like kind of be around Maya, because you can tell early on that he is like not thinking about cheating, but just like, oh, I want to be around this person that likes me.
Yeah,
right now.
Yeah,
like,
very much. He's not thinking about cheating, but he's like, oh, if I wasn't in this relationship,
yeah,
I could sleep with this person.
Yeah,
and that's what I mean about like why I don't think he would cheat. Is like, I don't think he's the kind of cheater in that sense, but I do think he's the kind of person where he's like, oh man, if only I wasn't dating this girl.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of the same thing happens to Josh, where Josh is like, yeah, this is kind of weird, blah blah blah. This is crazy. Something. Anyway, I gotta stay. I gotta make my thesis double good because fuck Christian. And now I have to sneak into this sacred center and like take forbidden phone pictures of this Bible thing, because of Christian.
It's so, I loved her. Josh sucks. Josh is a perfect asshole dipshit. I love this scene where he pees on the tree.
No, that's not Josh. That's
not Josh. Sorry. What's that character's name?
That's Will Poulter playing fucking.
I got confused because I read a review where someone was like,
"It's Josh and Mark," which is impossible.
Very similar. Because like I was reading a review, someone was like, "The first time I watched this, I didn't think Josh really deserved it, but when I watched it a second time, I was like, no, wait, he kind of did."
Yes, because that's I had exactly the same thing happen, to where I was like, man, what? Don't do this to William Jackson Harper.
I was gonna say, I honestly think it's just because it's William Jackson Harper, and we all love Chidi, and his character is very similar to Chidi in this film. This shit's
just a prequel to The Good Place.
This is how they all died.
Yeah. God, wouldn't that be fucked up? But anyway. But like, he kind of does deserve it because he is up his own ass.
Yeah, no, he is up his own ass. There's also the scene that like where they're like oh, we're gonna have a whatever the Swedish word for suicide ritual is, and he's like, what, like a real one?
Arrestutan.
Yeah, and then like afterwards, he is to Danny's like, I'm sorry, I didn't think it was gonna be that intense, but it's like the literal translation of that word is suicide ritual.
Yeah.
Like, and like when you ask, do you mean like an actual one? Pele says yes. It doesn't matter how like intense it's gonna be. You should have known maybe the girl whose sister committed suicide 6 months ago shouldn't be here.
Once again, 80% of the truth.
Yeah.
And just kind of pretending to be better.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I totally didn't think it was going to be that bad, you know? It's like, you knew it was going to be a suicide.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's not like the name, or it's not even like suicide ritual. It's like elder, I think the direct translation is like elder suicide.
But like
it's literally like exactly what her trauma would be if he knows what it is. It's not like the name of the ritual is like, rebirth ritual.
And that's the fucking thing about this whole movie is just like, okay, you fucked me over, but at least you're pretending to be upset about it and you are apologizing profusely, as opposed to Christian, who is just kind of like, all right, you're experiencing emotions, I'm gonna go.
That scene is a masterclass of acting, though, when he's just so hyped about it, and then she's like upset, and she's like, isn't this fucked? And like watching his like brain cycle through like 50 different responses and then go, yeah. And like literally like hands, like fucking SNL skit actor, like hands on his hips. Yeah, it is really fucked up.
Yeah.
But I think
but
Danny, I would never support suicide rituals. Correct. But
it's so good.
It's such a brilliant like mixture of like really good character writing and like really good comedy character writing. Because like you could like with just a little. I mean, we joked about it being like a Good Place prequel. Honestly, the Good Place writing staff could basically write this same movie.
Yeah.
Like as a comedy rather than as like a series of emotional turmoil.
No, absolutely. And a super important thing that I want to bring up is that after the film, well, there's a whole bunch of comments from cast about and like the director about like, yeah, we had a great time shooting this movie at breakneck speed in the middle of summer in Budapest, getting attacked by bugs and being stressed the fuck out. So like there's that, and then there's also like the cast watching their first screening of the film in apparently stunned silence, and the actor for Christian, Jack Rayner, apparently getting up at the end of the movie and being like, hey, by show of hands, how many of you think Christian deserved that? And then like half the audience like raises their hands, a lot of women raise their hands, and he's like, shame on you. Which is very funny and kind of emblematic, kind of like thematically emblematic of the communication disconnect that happens in this fucking movie. Like you have to understand both why Christian would act in the way that he acts, which is completely like irresponsible and irrational, and also why Danny would act in the way that she acts, which is completely irrational and irresponsible.
Yeah, no, it is an unhealthy relationship.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be like, both sides are equally to blame. Because it's like, to an extent, no. I think greater responsibility in ending the relationship rests on Christian because he is the one who wanted out of it.
Yeah, and he's also the one whose parents didn't just fucking die.
Yeah, exactly. But it is also something where it's like, it's made very clear early on that Danny also has communication issues. Because she has a friend that she can talk to about her problems, who she is shown only talking to about, oh, am I talking to my problems to my boyfriend too much?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm worried about scaring him away. And it becomes the same thing where it's like she doesn't bring up that anxiety to him, because if she did, even like while they were even if they did at that point, like there's a possibility that could have, air quotes, saved the relationship. Mm-hmm. Like him being like, actually, yeah, I kind of have been wanting out of this relationship because I feel like a lot of emotional burden is put on me. Oh, dope. I will try to not to do that as much.
Yeah.
And then they turn and look at the camera. Polyamory.
God. Do you remember the line where Will Poulter's character, Mark, is literally just like, God, it's literally abuse.
Yeah. That line got so many like not like the whole audience laughed, but so many different pieces in the audience just went, ah! It's that sort of barking laugh.
Yeah, it's such a jump scare line. It's so funny, and it's so like, yeah, this is the fucking yarn that people spin to themselves about this kind of fucking
It
bullshit.
really is like, yeah, this really is breakups in 2019, where it's like, it's literally abuse that I won't break up with you because I don't like dating you.
Yeah, which is like, man, it's so fucked up that he is not wrong, but he is like right for the absolute wrongest of reasons, and because it came out of his mouth, there is no way anyone is ever going to fucking listen.
Yeah, no.
Which is great. And also, I also wrote down the line.
Also, Danny, welcome to the House of Psychotic Women.
Yeah!
Which, by the way, I'm doing my due diligence. I found out that local libraries here, the Seattle Public Library, you can submit books to be purchased.
Wow.
And a bunch of titles I've been recommending have been getting bought, including House of Psychotic Women. So
Hell yeah.
If you live in Seattle and wanted to rent that book from the library, once it's done processing, you're welcome.
You have Jay to thank.
Yeah,
bitch.
that's literally me. I did that.
And you can too, America.
Seriously, folks, support your local libraries. Check them out. There's a lot of cool services and features.
Real shit. I love the library.
Unironically, I love the library.
The library is maybe the only thing that I love in this fucking life.
It's so weird that like there are so many things where like, you know, because of the way I'm socialized, I round down how much I like things and whether or not they're good.
Yeah.
Library, no, 100%. I'm all in. Libraries are fucking cool.
They're great. They're so relaxing. They're so nice.
The people who work there are always really nice.
And books are cool.
It's like a community public resource. It specifically is basically tailored to the lower class. Fuck. Libraries are good. Fuck anyone who doesn't like libraries. And fuck Amazon.
Fuck Amazon. Fuck you.
Sorry, the line you're...
No, that's fine. Yeah, just, I thought that the line of Danny being like, oh, I had a bad trip and ran into the forest and fell asleep. Is it tomorrow now? And Christian being like, from yesterday's perspective.
That line is so funny.
Okay.
Because then the answer to his question is yes.
Yeah.
Like, he's just being an asshole for no reason.
Like, it's so funny. It's so... there's so much good stuff in this fucking movie. There's so many moments of Danny just having to be like, well, fuck me, I guess.
I think one of the saddest things in this film is the few moments where you see them interacting as if they love each other.
Yeah.
The scene that is just like actual heartbreaking for me was like the scene where they're watching the people pick the flowers. And Mark just goes like, "Those girls know they're picking those flowers wrong." And then but then as it's pulling out and it's seeing it, you see and hear Danny sits down with Christian and she goes, "Here, I got you these." And he's like, "Oh, thank you." He's like, "Did you pick them backwards too?" She's like, "Uh-huh." But it's like such a cute interaction because it's that exact kind of just like playful teasing that they're doing to each other. You know, it's like, "Oh, I got you these flowers because I did this silly little ritual." And it's such a cute moment. And it's like, it's really sad seeing it because you're like, oh, there was definitely like before this movie started, this was probably like not before, but like in the first, they're together 4 years. In the first 2 years, the relationship was probably really good.
Yeah.
And then, you know, Danny started dealing with her family and didn't know how to cope with it. And Christian didn't know how to cope with her not coping with it.
Yeah, I think the theatrical release is really good, but I think the kind of extended cut that we're being teased has supposedly more of Christian being like a good boyfriend in it, and I think that's what's missing.
No, I really think that really shows, because like, and that also shows like, you know, why Danny is in the relationship.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's really important to establish that both of them get good things out of it, and that's ultimately what makes the like the breakup so traumatic for Danny.
Yeah.
Is that there is a point to which the relationship was good, but it's past that point, and neither of them want to admit that that is no longer the case.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. So
Ari Aster, you smart son of a bitch.
I'm
clever Betty.
This this absolutely sealed it for me. He's probably one of my favorite modern directors. I did go and watch all of his short films, including.
Can you give me a ranking of the?
Yes. His absolute best short film is called TDF Really Works. It's about the dick fart. It's quite literally a advertisement that he made in, like, I don't know, college or something, for basically like a like baster that you put in your dick to like put air into your dick so that your dick farts instead of your ass.
I see what you mean about how, like, when you were telling me about it, you're like, it literally is like something that you and I both made separately in high school. Like, this sort of bullshit.
Yeah. Like, oh, it was a really nice moment because, and it really kind of, like, my film school career went the way it did because I wanted to fucking kill myself every single day. And I just did not want to meet new people, and I just wanted to fucking die. And I think Ari Aster probably had a similar experience, but he had friends.
Yeah, he had friends.
Which means
he probably went to school with his high school friends.
Yeah, exactly. Which means, or he went to AFI and not State College.
And he met other depressed film students who wanted to kill themselves.
Yeah, and also, but who wanted to kill themselves, but also wanted to make movies more than kill themselves, which, you know, is hard to find at State College. But like, there's TDF really works, but yeah, which absolutely is like a goofy fucking ad that I would have made for class, like that kind of thing. And then there's the strange thing about the Johnsons, which is really just him being like, can I tastefully make the most untasteful content I could possibly think of? And my reaction is probably back to the drawing board, because no.
I will say as an aside, one of the few big, like, heavier criticisms I will levy against him is that he has trouble sometimes thinking about the way things look.
Oh, 100%.
So there's the thing about the Johnsons movie is that that was one of his first controversial things because he casts an all black cast, and he was like, well, I just cast, like, you know, like, it was one of the actors was cast first, and he's like, well, then it's got to be a black family. Mm-hmm. Reasonable. But so for you who don't know, the film is not only about incest, but it's about the son is the sexually aggressor party towards the father.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, the thesis of his film was essentially supposed to be like, you know, reversing the power dynamics that are often in play at these things to, like, kind of underline the idea that, like, it is insane that this is even tolerated in society. Mm-hmm. You know, like, when the power dynamics are reversed, it's so much more obvious, but it's like, why isn't it as obvious when the power dynamics are as they normally are?
Yeah.
But it's a terrible, it's a very, like, not a great way to execute that idea.
Yeah.
But he caught flack because he cast a black family, and, you know, obviously there's kind of something really loaded in the image of a sexually aggressive black man abusing his family.
Yeah.
And he kind of recreated that problem in Midsommar, because I know some people were like, it's sort of weird having a Swedish all-white death cult, and there's, like, very few non-white characters.
Absolutely.
And they get pretty brutally murdered alongside that.
Which, like, as I feel we've kind of explained a little bit, like, it's explained, it's not necessarily apologized for or kind of cohabitated with by the rest of the elements in the movie in a very helpful way, I would say. There's that aspect of it, and the aspect of just, like, these brutalized brown bodies that you just kind of have to witness. There's brutalized white bodies, of course, but it's, like, a completely different context.
It's something where it's like it feels a little bit more because I talked to a couple of people about it where it's like there's like it's not that it's, like, bad, it's just that it's like there's a level at which you can kind of feel the absence of, like, there's no acknowledgement of the fact that, like, these are the Josh and then the two British people are the only non-white people in a cult of Swedish white people.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's also kind of the double-edged, or like the other issue that we kind of touched on with, like, the eugenics and the incest thing, where we have a disabled character who is even more pushed off to the side in this movie. And the movie does something great and says, like, and tells you in words, like, hey, this society is pushing this off to the side.
Yeah.
And this society is trying to make this crime against humanity as invisible as possible. And in the same way, the narrative is kind of doing that. And that is maybe something to be cognizant of. And at the same time, it is still an image of a disabled person that is like being neglected.
Yeah.
And
it still has the, as you put it, the magic disabled person trope.
Yeah. For the second time in a row.
time in a row, yeah.
Thanks, Ari.
It's still something where it's like, I don't think he does these things with willful intention. I don't even think he does them in a like unconscious bias way.
No.
I think he just doesn't think about it. And that's more of the biggest criticism I'd levy against him.
And my argument is that it's exceptionally conscious. And it's also exceptionally conscious in Hereditary because like the daughter is just used as a gambling chip. And like her interiority is just swept to the side and she is made as invisible as possible and shelved and like she's too big of a problem and like all of this shit that is like, yeah, that absolutely is how disability is treated in our society. Fucking ow.
Yeah.
Like, ouch.
No, sorry. When I say like not conscious, I don't mean that he just like does it. I mean, it's like, I don't think he's conscious of like making his two big movies both feature that kind of character.
Yeah.
I don't think he's conscious of the fact that like that's kind of not a good like going back to that well twice feels a little weird.
Yeah, it's certainly not malevolent.
I don't think it's malevolent. I am one of the few people who like is very not apologetic of Charlie, but it's like I feel like the way the movie treats Charlie in Hereditary is intentional, and that I feel like it's making a point about how in traditional horror films and in real life these kids are treated as like weird demonic creatures, but that she is ultimately a little girl, and that is why her death is so shocking in the film, because it really it basically makes the point that you only recognize her as a real person when she's dead.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's very it's very umami. It's very complicated. And it's very I don't know. It's not exactly 101 material that we're ever working with when it comes to Ari Aster, but at the same time,
that's why we stand.
Yeah, that's kind of, that's kind of worth standing.
Ari Aster, Yorgos Lanthimos, stand. we stand.
We stand.
We on Film Critters stand them.
Do you remember all the parts in Midsommar where the cultists would like literally look directly at the camera?
No.
So there was a part during the Adastupta scene where, and this I think goes kind of back into the point of them being like aware of society as a whole. I'm sorry that this recording is going so long. There's so much fucking shit to talk about.
I think people are, I mean, one of our first very long episodes was Hereditary. I think people are going to expect that this is going to be a long one.
Yeah, but like, yeah, so they're about to do the Adastupta and everyone is kind of standing at the base of this like cliff. And this character turns around and looks into the camera like it's a fucking Napoleon Dynamite scene.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
And he like looks at the camera and it's ominous because his look isn't ominous. It's just like the look that, you know the look that someone gives you when you're at a house party and like all of a sudden you're just like a person that is standing there and they just look at you to like kind of visually collate the information that you're there, and then they look back at the thing that they're already looking at. It's like that.
Yeah, okay.
Where it's like kind of emotionless and kind of just like welcoming in that way of it's just like, it's not this person. It doesn't feel judgmental, and it's kind of just like, oh, your presence there. Okay, I'm going to shift my attention back really quick.
The film does, I know, I feel like that works too, if like the way the murals are constantly presented directly to the audience. Like there's the one at the start of the film. There's the love story one that's just shown to the audience. I feel like there's a lot of things like that that are like foregrounded in a way that acknowledge the audience and make them a part of the witnessing.
Yeah, 100%.
And how that probably ties into the anthropology thing. Also, another great contradiction I just thought that's in the film, because I was thinking about that opening mural scene. Putting the title of your film, Midsommar, over a winter storm... Brilliant. Such a good bit.
So good.
Such a like subtle like joke, but also like introduction of the themes of contradiction.
Yeah, there's so much of that shit, and there's so much mirroring. There's that great shot, like quite literally there's so much shit with mirrors in this fucking movie. There's that great shot of they're in the room. We're just gonna go through every single fucking scene.
Yeah, that's fine. We can just fuck it. Yeah, fuck it. It's a good movie. There's a lot to talk about.
There's this scene where Christian, Josh, and Mark and Pele are studying together in this like dorm room situation, and there's a big mirror on the wall. There's also a dab rig and a bong, so which is
I can't believe I missed that.
There is a dab rig next to Pele on this like weird cabinet, and then under the table in another shot, because you don't see it in the ensemble shot, but in like a close-up, there's a bong under the coffee table.
That's my house. That's where we're recording.
I'm looking
right
at
now.
a bong right
There's
now.
a bong directly next to the microphone. That's the
bong
bong.
ASMR. That's just an incredible scene all around. And it's made more incredible by Christian being like, okay, she's coming with us, but she's not coming with us. Oh, she's here right now. Shut up, shut up, shut up. And he like lets her in, and she's like, hey guys, great. I can't wait. I'm so excited.
And then Josh just doesn't say anything.
Yeah, Christian puts you see in the reflection, Christian putting his arms around her and kissing her. And Josh, Mark, and Pele look so uncomfortable because they were just talking about this shit. And like, they don't sanction this relationship. They're like not okay with this affection, and they're just kind of like, which is great. And then there is fucking, oh god. Oh, and then another mirroring thing. So there's kind of this general thematic conceit of Pele being the anti-Christian by like being able to show emotion and being able to say sorry. And in the same way, Maya feels kind of like the anti-Danny because Maya is like showing all this interest in Christian and is able to, and like is able to speak and is able to be like, hey, I'm really interested in you, and I'm really interested in pursuing like romance, air quotes. And that is kind of visually manifested in like the first time that you see Maya. She's kind of preparing herself in a mirror in like a really similar outhouse to the one that Danny was in during her bad trip at the beginning of the film. Which is another thing that's mirrored because Danny has a bad trip at the beginning and then Christian has a bad trip at the ending. So it's all about their power struggle and power going from Christian to Danny throughout the movie. And then like the Maya shot is framed so that she's in the right side of the frame and she's looking into the mirror and she goes like, and like does that breath thing. And then she like goes out into the world. And in the exact same framing, Danny blows out the birthday candle later on in the film and goes, like reversed.
So good.
I love filmmaking. I'm such a loser, and it's so
good. I'm glad that you're smarter about filmmaking technique than I am. Because we need someone like that on the show.
the technique and just the use of like very consistently framing things in the same way, and very consistently framing things either in profile or head on, as a way to just be like, yeah, no, like, we are able to kind of view these things objectively and view them sort of like head on and face to face because they're not really that scary. Everything else is,
yeah,
in a way. The craft of the movie is just great. And then when Josh dies, there's a big mirror in that room, which is how you see the person who's behind Josh. And there's mirrors all over the fucking place in this shit, which is very film school, but very, but you know, Ari Aster, he is film school. He's a film school guy.
He's a film school guy. I can't wait for his next movie. So we were also talking about his shorts. So any other thoughts about his shorts?
No, they're pretty. The rest are pretty fucking unremarkable. I don't know, they're okay. He has some kind of sort of funny ones. There's one about a homeless man that I find kind of annoying. And there's one from the perspective of like an LA Valley girl that's like kind of funny and they're not really that interesting. Munchausen is funny on paper. It's basically a Pixar short. Yeah, no, that's what I've heard about it, is that it's essentially what if Pixar but fucked up. Yeah, exactly. And which is much less interesting to view in the long form of it, I think. But that being completely beside the case, I don't know. I think that I don't really consider that part of his oeuvre because I consider his feature films just just such a completely different beast and something that is so much more layered and so much more interesting that I just have to be like super supportive and super excited for whatever comes next.
Yeah, no, I think I mean he disappointed so far. And yeah, I think it's fair to be like, I mean, his short films are stuff that he made in college. Like,
Yeah, and I mean-
the last big short film he made from that, if I remember correctly, was literally his thesis statement, and then he went into making like Hereditary and stuff.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like, you know, they are of course flawed films because they are being made by someone literally learning their craft.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Is there anything else?
Oh yeah, I do want to talk about the great Reddit posts from his AMA, where it's just like, one of them is just, like, one of the questions is just like, you depict trauma like really well in your films. Is it just because you're really good with like your actors, you know, good casting, or like are you drawing from personal experience? And his response is both, with an exclamation point. And like the first response is just like, all right, dude, don't get so excited. And then there's like another one where someone, like, the first question he's asked in the AMA is just like, you all right, dude? And he just says no.
He says nope.
Nope. Just the image of Ari Aster just fucking depressed on Reddit answering questions makes him the most relatable filmmaker alive today.
And that's kind of another thing that I think is important context to bring up. And this obviously gets into some kind of weird parasocial, like, awkward stuff where we're talking about Ari Aster as a person. Sorry, Ari Aster, please don't listen to this.
Yeah, please, turn your ears off.
But I think it's I think my critique of his portrayal of like the disability stuff is kind of complicated by the fact that he is very obviously depressed in kind of much the same way that I have been depressed, in the same way that I have depression, in the same way that a lot of people I know have depression.
Yeah.
So it's not really, you know, it's not really like, here's a weak man filmmaker. It's like, no, actually, like, this is a really complicated guy who obviously, like, you can kind of see in interviews that he is like losing his train of thought. He is like self-aggrandizing. He's like self-flagellating. He's, you know, oh, I've been doing so many interviews. I hate myself, blue, blue, blue. Which, like, I think that is kind of a condition that male artists tend to suffer from, and kind of make a big to-do about. See Synecdoche, New York by Charlie Kaufman is a good example of that. But I think Ari Aster is coming from a place of real honesty, and a place of real lived experience, and is not, and thus far is not using his platform to be preachy, and is being, I think, is taking a much more holistic view as a result of all of this kind of stuff.
I think really what it comes down to, like, in terms of the contrast, is that I feel like, having watched Synecdoche, New York, is that it's like the dark comedy that comes from being depressed and etc. I feel like with Ari Aster, it comes from a place of like really wanting to be genuine and sincere with that, and like really play with that kind of like pain and like hurt and like the way it fucks you up. And then Charlie Kaufman is just like, I loved his other films. Synecdoche, New York is just so bitter and snarky and mean, and not in a way that's like fun or like interesting or, for me, particularly enlightening.
It doesn't feel cathartic or anything.
It just feels really boring.
and I think that, like,
and it's not to like downplay, because like I've seen adaptation. I know Charlie Kaufman's got some shit going on.
Yeah.
It's just very much a thing of just like, you know, there's a point at which you're gazing into your mental illness enough times that you're not really doing anything with it. You're just like, well, this is my muse.
Yeah, absolutely.
I talked about it when we were talking about it with Ari Aster before, but it's like, it's, you know, contrast that with like Lars von Trier's whole thing of like, well, I don't want to get treatment because what if I stop making good art? And it's like, that's not how any of that works, dude. Yeah. Are you okay? That's not how that works, dude. You know that, right? You can like you can look this up. That's not how it works.
Your art will be way better. Trust me. Go to therapy.
Your art will probably be way better because you won't make like weird decisions because you're depressed and self-destructive. Yeah. You won't claim you're a Nazi and get banned from Palms de Four if you're not depressed.
God, yeah, absolutely, and that's the thing. Because I think a lot of people kind of want to gaze into the abyss and just make art that's like make art that just says like, I want to kill myself.
I think it's the suffering artist thing where it's like the belief is that in order to be a good artist, you have to have suffering. And I think it's more that if you know suffering, you can make really good art from it, but you don't have to like be currently suffering. And in fact, being currently suffering is probably going to impede some of your process.
And like, you haven't killed yourself, you're continuing to live, and so maybe make art about that.
You should be making art that like makes you feel good. That should be the reason why your suffering motivates art.
Yeah, that's the whole fucking point.
It's really obvious that Ari Aster's art is like personally cathartic to him.
Absolutely. And like, that obviously puts him in kind of a really vulnerable place because he's making work that is also cathartic to like millions of other people. But I don't know. I think it's really, it's a really just, it's filmmaking that has like heart.
I feel like we're really seeing the rise of that kind of like the new style of like that kind of filmmaking where it's like there's an approach to it that is cathartic and like artistic that is not just like, oh, I have to wallow in this forever.
Yeah, absolutely. I think filmmakers are also just kind of getting like a more worldwide palette, because there's just so much. I don't know. Film is. I don't like talking about like this kind of or like talking in these kind of terms, but I do really think film is like a super incredible art form, and I think that film history worldwide has such a good well to draw from for like interesting storytelling that is really like peaceful and really helpful and doesn't wag its finger at its characters. Like look at Bong Joon-ho, like look at films that come out of Iran, look at films that come out of fucking anywhere else that isn't America.
yeah, really.
And you know, like A24 shit. Like so I applaud him as being like kind of the one of those directors, like of that school and that camp of just like being able to think of these things on these bigger terms and being able to position himself as a person that is in fucking society and alive, and also pushing it towards kind of the darker sort of horror end, I guess. I don't know. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Good job, Aster.
Good job, Ari Aster.
A+. Yeah, that's. Is that I think that's a good. I think
I've talked myself blue in the fucking face.
Yeah, I'm gonna go watch Lost now.
So yeah,
now it's time to turn my brain into fucking bullshit candy, so I can talk about garbage media and not something that's like fucking art.
Yeah. Well, I gotta run. I gotta catch the new Bong Joon-ho movie, Parasite. It's I'm gonna go see. No, it's not.
I wish.
I can't wait. I'm just bringing up a movie that I really want to see on the podcast because I want it to come to Seattle.
We talked about that. We talked about The Farewell. I cannot wait for Lighthouse to get out here.
Oh, Lighthouse is going to be great. Also,
I've heard nothing but good from people who've seen it.
Will Poulter and Jack Rayner apparently made their own little short film together that I'm really interested in watching.
Oh, what is it?
Fucking I don't know.
Oh, okay.
but
fair enough.
But it's supposedly like kind of like a short horror piece, and I'm really interested in checking that out.
I don't think there's any other like art good looking films that are coming out that are interesting.
Well, Marvel just announced Phase 4.
Oh yeah, the we have enough money that we can now use diversity as an advertising tactic rather than as something that is possibly actually going to be a risk tactic.
Yeah. All right.
I fucking hate Marvel. I fucking hate it so much.
Oh, we can't go on this. Well, anyway, Midsommar's great.
Midsommar's great.
Go watch Midsommar. Support.
Did you know that Marvel literally is collaborating with the military-industrial complex? They're like shaking hands.
Yeah, no, that's Disney, baby.
Can you believe people get mad at independent artists and then go watch that shit?
Yeah, you really can. Unfortunately. So support A24.
Yeah, support literally anything else.
Support anything fucking else.
Listen
you
to
animals.
fucking power noise made by some dude who probably is a fucking monster rather than go see Marvel, and you'll still be causing less harm to the world.
Pirate the new Blade movie. It's not gonna be good. You know it's not. Come on.
It's so weird that they're making a new Blade movie when the original Blades are still so good. Like, they really do. Like, I know people say a lot, like, why are you making it? The original's so good. But, like, I rewatched Blade a while back. It still holds up. It could be re-released.
Blade 1 is an incredible.
You could just release it now.
Yeah, just
and it still is good.
Well, we're at almost an hour 30.
All right. Well, time. That's the sound of us heading out,
traveling away. Thank you for the Foley.
Yeah, I've listen. I fiddle with things a lot. It's like an old ADHD habit, and sometimes it comes back, baby.
That mood. And keep an eye out. Poughkeepsie Tapes. Our episode is going to be dropping very soon.
Yeah.
Probably in conjunction with this, and that's going to be exclusive to our Patreon. You can go there to see other exclusive fun things. We have a non-exclusive thing that came out earlier, Blair Witch Project.
It's the Blair Witch Project with Kate Wirtz. We've got an actual full episode.
Yeah,
eventually coming.
We'll fucking see.
Yeah, it's. I know we've said this a few times, but it is now actually recorded and therefore in the can, as they say.
Yeah.
But
now comes the
editing part, which takes a lot more.
All right. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.